the big change from a club perspective is that we'll be looking as the IFR to adopt a principles-based method of regulation. So that moves away from the kind of the strict rules, thresholds, limits, and looks at all the facts in the round and says, well, actually, does this look sustainable? Does this look like we can work with this? We can work with this club as a sustainable business model. And sustainable business model in itself has a number of different meanings or interpretations. You know, a lot of clubs, the vast majority of the clubs in the 5 tiers that we will regulate are loss making and owner funded. That is, as a default position, sustainable up until the point that the owner decides no longer to fund it. So there is a challenge and a question there as to what sustainable is, but certainly day one, that is sustainable. That's not to say that we won't look at some clubs and say, okay, what would you do if owner funding was withdrawn? How would you survive to the next transfer window in the immediate future? So there's definitely going to be some questions there. We will also look at things like the governance structure of clubs, and the club that has a lot of independent non-executive directors that will scrutinize the club and hold them to account is clearly going to be a lower risk than the one that is entirely run by the family. That's not to say that the family-run business model is not acceptable to the IFR. It absolutely is. But you also need to recognize the degree of risk that comes without independent scrutiny. So we will look to focus our efforts really where we think the most risk lies. And that comes through a number of different metrics. That's looking, as I said, at non-financial resources. So things like the governance structure. It's looking at the liquidity and solvency positions of clubs. And it's understanding the business model that each individual club has and therefore what the particular risks are to them. Now, to do that effectively, what we need to do from a supervision perspective, we're going to have a team of supervisors, and each supervisor will look after 4 to 5 clubs. So actually, I want those supervisors to get in, to talk to those clubs, understand how they run, understand how they work, understand what their perception of the risks to their business model is. And through doing that, we can learn about the club, we can bring in best practice from other areas, and we can start to look at saying, have you considered this? Have you challenged that? Have you stress tested something? And what that then does, hopefully, is get the club thinking about where it needs to be and what does happen if there is downside risk. Some clubs do that already, and those clubs that do it already and do it effectively will actually not see a huge amount from us. They will have to do some statutory reporting. But what I don't want to do is add a whole load of administrative burden onto clubs that are actually pretty well run and doing the right thing. Those clubs that aren't will see a lot more of us. And when we move into the licensing space, actually we do have quite a wide set of tools to be able to intervene in those clubs if needed. What we really want to do, though, is say to clubs, this is what we think, this is where we think you are, what are you going to do about it? And if the answer is absolutely nothing, that's when we will start to use some of the tools that the Act provides for us. So it's about initially making sure there's plenty of engagement, understanding how that club works and how that club runs, and then only if we really need to start to move along the path of more formal measures.